Right, y'all, we are on our 3D geometry lesson called Surface Area of Prisms. Here we go. Here are the vocabulary that we have. Surface area is our word, and here is the definition of surface area. Surface area is area of a 3D figure. It is the area of each face that makes up that 3D figure added together. The units for surface area are always to the second power, or squared. Before we calculate the surface area of prisms, I'm going to give you 4 strategies to help you be successful with calculating the surface area of prisms. The first strategy, separate each face of the prism. What I mean by that is pull each face that makes that prism up off. So it's no longer one 3D shape, but several 2D shapes. Next, label the dimensions of each of the faces you pulled off. Next, find the area of each face that you pulled off. And finally, add the area of each face that you pulled off together. When you calculate the sum of the areas, then you will find the surface area of the. Alright, y'all, we have 2 examples with calculating the surface area of prisms. The first prism that we're looking at is a square prism, or you can call it a rectangular prism. And you can see that I have laid out the steps to help us just keep track of where we are in calculating the surface area. So the first part here is we want to separate each face of the prism. We've worked on nets where you take a 3D shape and you unfold it into a 2D shape. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take a 3D shape and just pull off each face. I feel it keeps it a little bit more organized. So we're going to start with pulling off the front and the back of this figure. So I'm just going to label that down here, front and back. Key thing is we want to make sure that we get the correct dimensions. So you can see I'm just going to label the front here right now. There's the front. Do you see it? And our dimensions are 4, and our height, or our base is 4, excuse me, and our height is, our height isn't over there, but we know that opposite sides of a rectangle are congruent, so if this edge has a length of 8, then this edge will also have a length of 8, which will give us a height of 8. So the front and the back are going to have the same dimensions. We can go ahead and draw that here. It's going to be 4 units by 8 units. And since this is actually a square prism, we're going to have more sides that are congruent to each other. Alright, so now we have the front and the back. Next, let's do the 2 sides, and I'm going to identify them here in blue. So here is the first side, and then here is the second side, and they're going to have congruent dimensions, and you can see that our base is 4 and our height is 8. And I'm saying that this is a base instead of a width or a thickness because I'm pulling that face off. Okay, so we're going to do our sides here. And when we pull them off, they actually have the same dimensions as the front and the back, 4 by 8. And that's because we are dealing with a square prism, right? 4 by 8. Beautiful. Then let's go ahead and let's see, we've done the front and the back, we've done the 2 sides. What remains? The top and the bottom. So here's the top, outlining it in yellow here. And that's going to be identical to the bottom, which I'm outlining in yellow as well. And you can see that the dimensions for the top and the bottom are, well, our shape is a square, so it's going to be 4 by 4. Our base is going to be 4, and our height is going to be 4. So let's write top and bottom, and our dimensions, it's a square face, so it is 4 units by 4 units, and they're congruent, so both the top and the bottom have the same. And so now we have separated each face from the prism, we've pulled it off, we've labeled the dimensions, which sometimes is the hardest part because it's really easy to get that confused. And next we need to find the area of each face. So let's go ahead and do that, and I'm going to be putting the area in white. These are all polygons, and they're all polygons that we're used to seeing and calculating area with. So we just need to go base times height, and that gives us the area of that figure. So 4 times 8 gives us 32 square units. And this one is also going to have an area of 32 square units. Moving to the sides, they have the same dimensions since we're dealing with a square prism. So we have 32 square units. Dealing with the top and the bottom, we have 4 by 4. Our base is 4, our height is 4. So the area of that face is 16 square units. And finally, the last step says to add the area of each face. So we need to add each face together to calculate the surface area. So why don't you pause the video here, add each one of these faces together, and let's see if we get the same surface area. All right, you should get the surface area, which I've abbreviated as SA here, to be 160 units squared, or 160 square units. Let's go ahead and let's do the next example, which is not a rectangular prism or a square prism. It is a triangular prism. So let's go ahead and calculate the surface area of that next. All right, y'all, here we go again. This time we're dealing with a triangular prism, so we're going to start by separating each face of the prism. Let's start with the front and the back. And it doesn't matter if you want to start with the front and the back, the top and the bottom, the sides, it doesn't matter. I'm just selecting some here. So we're going to start with the front and the back. So I'm just going to label that here so I know what I'm looking at. Okay? The front and the back, in this figure, I'm looking at my bases as my front and my back. So there's the front, here's the back, and you can see that this is a triangular prism since my two congruent faces that are parallel are triangles. So let's go ahead and let's pull those off. And then we'll label them. My height here, which always has to be the perpendicular segment on a triangle, is 3 centimeters, and I'm just going to leave centimeters off right now so I'm not looking at so much. And my base is 4 centimeters. And the front and the back are congruent, so I just have to redraw this picture again. Or I'm sure some of you are maybe just multiplying by 2, which is completely fine. Okay, so then the next one, let's pull off the bottom. Why am I not doing the bottom and top? Because they're going to have different dimensions here. And let's see, I'm seeing this face as the bottom. I didn't change colors this time, sorry. I'll outline it in red for you, okay? I'm seeing that as the bottom, and I can see that that's a rectangular face, and my dimensions are 4 centimeters by 11 centimeters. So let's go ahead and let's draw that down here. We have 4. I drew mine a little differently than the picture, and 11. And now we just have one of those faces that have that as a dimension. So then let's go to the top, and I am seeing this one, which I'm outlining in green for you to the best of my ability. I'm seeing that face as the top. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's figure out the dimensions for that face. We can see that it has a base of 11 and a height of 5. So let's go ahead and let's draw that. And this I'm calling the top, and now I'm switching to green. So 11 by 5. And then there's a face that we still haven't included. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to outline it in purple. And we'll call it a side here. So it's going to have dimensions of 11 centimeters by 3 centimeters. So we'll go ahead and we'll draw that here. And I said I called this the side. And again, I'm not drawing anything to scale here. 11 centimeters by 3 centimeters. So we have separated each base of the prism. Now, we've done that. We've labeled the dimensions of each face. Now let's calculate the area of each face. And this time we need to be a little bit more careful because not each face is a rectangle, okay, or a square. So we need to be careful of that. We have a couple faces that are triangles. So you have to remember the area formula for a triangle, which is area is equal to 1/2 times your base times height. So we're going to use that formula, okay? So we have our base, which is 4, and our height, which is the perpendicular segment, has a length of 3. So if we go 1/2 of 4, that's 2, times 3 is 6. So the area of this triangle is 6 square centimeters. I'm just going to go ahead and write 6 in there since I don't have a lot of space. Moving on to the next one, our bottom face, we have 11 by 4. So base We're back to a rectangle now. Base times height. 11 times 4 gives me 44 centimeters squared. And then in the next one here we have, again, 11 as a base, but this time our height is 5. So we have 55 centimeters squared, or square centimeters. And then the final face we have 11 by 3, which gives me 33 square centimeters. And finally, all we need to do is add the area of each face together. So again, I'm going to have you pause the video and add the area of each face on the screen in front of you. And let's see if we get the same surface area. All right, y'all, I calculated my surface area, and I've abbreviated down here as SA again, to be 144 square centimeters. Remember those units, ladies and gentlemen. Otherwise, it looks like we're not talking about area. How is this example different than the previous one? Well, this example had triangles as your congruent bases. So we had to use a different area formula, and when we're dealing with a triangular prism, not all of the faces are as nice. There's the bell, as you can tell, and that brings me to the end of our examples. So make sure you have everything down in your notes, and we will see you later.